Hey, do you ever feel like you were meant for more as a church leader? Well, guess what? You're not alone. So many leaders in this world are going through the same thing. In this episode, I'm going to help you take the next step. My name is Henry Tolbert, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Church Systems Podcast. Over the next few episodes, we're going to be talking about the ripple effect. And today, we're talking about 5 keys to unlocking your leadership potential. When we talk about the ripple effect, what we're recognizing is that there is an undeniable link between your personal leadership and the growth and development of your church. And so what we've come to understand is that no matter how good your systems are, no matter how good your processes are, if your leadership is lacking, you will struggle to attract and retain the right people, even some of the people that God has called to walk alongside you. And so today we're going to take just a few moments and I'm going to walk you through 5 simple keys, 5 simple things that you can embrace in order to move forward. All right. So let's jump right into it. Number one, key number one is I want to challenge you and I want to invite you to embrace the journey. Embrace the journey. You know, leadership is a journey. It's not one of those things that you step into it and you got it perfectly the first day. It takes time. I even heard Sam Chan say several years ago. He said, there are three really 15-year periods in the life of a leader. In the first 15 years, and I'm paraphrasing here, you're kind of discovering, who you are. You're trying things out. The next 15 years, you're really refining who you are, getting clear on what you're called to do. And in the last 15 years, you really begin to thrive as you go forward. Now, it may not take you 45 years or 30 years to become a great leader, but I am saying it is a process. It is a journey and it takes time. And I want to encourage you, embrace the journey. Free yourself of the pressure for immediate results and for always feeling like you've got to immediately have it together. I want you to embrace the fact that this thing called leadership, it takes time. It is a journey that we go on. It is a journey that we walk down. And as you continue to embrace this journey, you'll begin to see progress. I don't know about you, but man, when I look back over my story, I look back over my journey, there are so many times where I can see I made mistakes, right? But here's the thing, you've got to keep growing as a person. Your goal is to keep growing as a person. I look back on situations between people where I made mistakes, things that I could have done so much better. But I kept growing as a person. And I encourage you to do the same. Just keep on growing, keep on getting better, keep on understanding that, you know what, if I'm going on a road trip, as soon as I get in the car, I don't want to be like my kids in the back seat asking from the moment we leave the driveway, are we there yet? Clearly, we're not there. It's a journey. Embrace your wisdom and your understanding of what a journey is, and understand that it's going to take time to get there, but every day you can move just one step closer. Every day you could take a step in the right direction. Every day you could be moving in the right space. Every day you could be moving towards where God has called you to be, but it takes you really embracing the journey that God has called you on. So I want to encourage you to really embrace the journey. Take your time and really embrace that. As I continue to grow as a leader, I'll continue to see things move forward. I also want to talk about, and I want to encourage you to embrace the journey for your church. Maybe your church isn't where you want it to be just yet or where you thought it would be by this point. Maybe there's some challenges that you thought would be solved by now. I want you to understand it's a journey. As you as a leader begin to go on this journey, as you and a leader begins to move forward, guess what? So will your church. Your church will take your lead. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but your church will take your lead. I remember years ago, I was talking to this amazing man of God who has since gone to be with the Lord, Minister Lynn Dawson. At the time, he was the athletic director at Grambling State University while I was a chaplain there. And I was a young church planter, and I was complaining to him about just some of the things that I was seeing in the church. And our church we weren't even a year old yet. But in my impatience and frustration, I was complaining to him. And I'll never forget his words to me. He looked at me and he said, keep on leading. He said, because in 3 to 5 years, the people that you have and the church will begin to look like you in your leadership. He said, it just takes time. Just keep on going. And so I pass that encouragement to you. Keep going. Keep on going forward. keep on leaning into the journey and understand as you grow and develop as a leader, as how you organize change, so will the church. As how you lead changes, so will the church. And so you've got to embrace the journey. That's key number one. Embrace the journey. All right. If you're rocking with me, I want you to put in the chat, just say embrace the journey. Say embrace the journey. All right. Number two, key number two is you've got to unlock your potential. You've got to unlock your potential. You know, what's true with most leaders is that there are things inside of you that you have not yet realized. There are things inside of you that you hadn't been able to execute yet. There are things inside of you that maybe you just haven't seen yet. And one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is truly unlock your potential. Give yourself the freedom, give yourself the opportunity to become who God called you to become. Here's a question I always ask myself is I say, man, who would I be if I gave God 100%? Come on, put that in the chat. Put that in the comments. Who would I be if I gave God 100%? And that's a question I have wrestled with for years and years and years. And today I'm passing that wrestle on to you. Who would you be if you gave God 100%? I know who you would be. You'd be somebody very different. I know who you wouldn't be, the same person you are today. But that starts with unlocking your potential. You've got to start to look at the areas in your leadership where you know you fall short, but also look at the areas in your leadership where you're really strong and give yourself permission to go all in on it. You know, I think one of the mistakes that I've discovered recently over the past couple of years is that I've always made the mistake of trying to hide or spend all of my time working on my weaknesses. And while I think we do need to work on our weaknesses, especially in ministry, if there's any area where we're not like Jesus, we need to work on it. But I think we could also be better served if we spent more time amplifying our strengths. If we spent more time doing well what we did, right? So one of the things I see often is that many of you were trained, you're in a generation that was trained to be great preachers. Great preaching is the thrust and was the thrust of leading a great church. And even though that has since changed, preaching is still your strength. And you want to work on your administration, you want to work on your communication with people, you want to work on your leadership and follow up, you want to work on your delegation, all those different things. And you need to work on those things, especially delegation. You need to work on those things. But maybe you also need to amplify your ability to share and to communicate the gospel. So that's why you need to preach, you know, keep on preaching strong messages on the weekend, but turn those messages into clips for the week. Turn those messages into Q&A for Bible studies and small groups. Turn those messages into resources that people can download and take home. If that is your strength, amplify your strength. That's how you unlock your potential. Give yourself the freedom to fully spread your wings. Yes, there are some areas where you need to grow. But to be honest with you, if you really want to expand, one of the things that you can do is begin to surround yourself with people who are strong where you're weak, right? You don't have to be everything. You don't have to be perfect at everything, but you do need to unlock your potential and allow your strengths to really shine. All right. So key number 2 is I want to challenge you to unlock your potential. Key number 3 is celebrate other leaders. I want you to celebrate other leaders. Let's break this down. Here's what I mean by that. I'm not just saying go around saying how good they are and how bad you are. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying instead is that what you ought to do is to learn to recognize good things in other leaders, but then to also ask yourself, how can I take some of those qualities that I see, that I like, that I admire? How can I take them and begin to bring them into my own life? And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. And I use the word celebrate intentionally. A couple of ways that you can celebrate other leaders. Number one, take a moment to let some other leaders see and know about the value that you see in them and their leadership. You know, sometimes it's just a DM like, hey, man, I love the way you lead. Keep doing what you do, man. You're an inspiration to us all, right? It's just simple things like that to keep letting people know, hey, look, I see you. Hey, I celebrate what God is doing in you. Number 2 is every time you see something in somebody, you know, instead of allowing it to frustrate you, instead of allowing it to make you look at yourself and go, well, see what you're not doing, take a moment and just write what you see. Just write down what you see, why it seems to impact you so much, and then go on to a journey to begin to celebrate by inviting those things into your life, by practicing those traits, right? You like how a leader communicates, go through their social media pages and just take note and study. How are they communicating? What are the things that they're communicating? You see another church and you like how they communicate from week to week. Go and look at the examples of what they're doing. If nothing else, download those examples. And when you get with another leader, when you get with some support, when you get with somebody who can help you do those things, right, you have some examples to say, let's do it. I know that's one of the things that probably frustrates, for example, graphic designers to no end, is that we hire them to do jobs and we say, hey, I want a flyer for this event. And we don't give them much information about the event. We might tell them the date and the theme and stuff like that, but we don't give them much. Like, what colors do you want? How do you want it to feel with this and that? Well, when you've got a folder full of examples, now you've got something you can share. And that's just one example. The same can be true for the leaders in your church. You can help them. And that's one of the ways that you can celebrate other leaders is by embracing and studying what they do, right? One of the ways that I honor all these greats and all the people that I've seen before is that I study them. I study what they've done. I study who they are, and I figure out how then we could take that and contextualize it. All right. So I want to challenge you to celebrate other leaders. All right. Somebody just put celebrate in the comments. Put celebrate in the comments. All right. Number 4. Key number 4 is that you've got to take simple steps. You've got to take simple steps. All right. And I want to get insanely practical with this one. You got to take simple steps. As a leader, I want you to stop and think for a minute. What are some of the things that you've lost along the way? On your leadership journey, I've learned, man, you lose different things in different seasons. And you don't always intentionally lose them. Sometimes you put them down with the intention to pick them back up again. But it seems like the moment you put one thing down, something seems to fill that space. And so as a result, one of the things that you've got to wrestle through is, what are those things that you need to pick back up again? Right. And as you think about taking some simple steps, a couple of things I want you to do. Number 1 is that I want you to go back and I want you to look at the things that you feel like you've lost along the way. I hear from so many leaders, man, I used to be creative. I used to love going to visit people. I used to love spending time with people. I used to love doing these things. I used to love investing in people. But along the way, stuff happened. Along the way, I lost a bunch of people that I poured a lot of time and energy into, and now it's harder to do it. Along the way, I had a lot of my creative ideas shut down because people just wouldn't go along with me when I had them, and so I kind of stopped being creative. Along the way, I used to have a lot of energy, man, but COVID wore me out, and I just be honest, I still haven't recovered yet, so I changed. I used to have all this innovation, and I used to love to host events and do things for people, but they stopped coming. And they stopped attending, man. I love teaching and I love doing this, but people stopped coming to be trained. I want you to make a list of the things that you feel like you've lost along the way. And that list is not just going to become a study list. It's going to become a prayer list. I want you to pray over that list, and I want you to invite God to restore those things to you. Restore back to you that joy that you had, that creativity, all of those things. And maybe it needs to be recontextualized and maybe it needs to look differently. But I want you to ask the Lord about those things that you've lost. The second thing is that I want you to intentionally put together a simple plan for you to grow in the areas where you need to grow, right? So for example, if you need to grow in the area of delegation, I want you to get some help from somebody who can help you be a better delegator. Now, I think this will work best if you got this help from somebody outside of your church, from somebody outside of your organization, so that they can hold you accountable. They can give you some keys and they can give you some support as you work through it. But get some help. A lot of times as a leader, really what you need is you just need somebody who's already done what you're trying to do, who can just hand it to you and give it to you, right? That's one of the huge values of our church systems boot camp, is that when it's time for you to delegate, you can delegate with confidence because we're training your leaders for you. That we've already given your leaders all the things that they need. We give you the tools to communicate well. Matter of fact, we give you a blueprint on how to delegate well. so that you can delegate with confidence and not with fear. So we give you all of those different things to help you, but I want to challenge you to begin to look at those things, begin to walk through that process so that you can start to get better every day. You're not just going to wake up better one day. I made this joke this weekend. I was preaching at a church. I said, if any of you have ever learned how to pray away fat and how to pray in muscle, please write a book, because I promise you, you finna be a billionaire before you know it. I said, write a book because you finna be a billionaire. And and everybody laughed because they knew it doesn't work that way. Well, the same is true with your leadership. It's not just going to happen. If it's going to happen, yes, God is going to come in and he's going to put his super, but you got to bring the natural. You got to take some steps that say, I'm serious, right? And that's, man, I tell you, one of my greatest joys as uh, a business owner who is really allowing this company, Simple Systems, to be the apostolic, the expression of my apostolic call. One of the things I love more than anything is that I get to choose who I work with. I get to choose. And the leaders I work with, that I love to work with, are the leaders who have come to a point where they say, enough is enough. They say, enough is enough, man. I'm tired of just going through the motions. I'm tired of stuff just whatever. I'm ready to go forward. Those are the leaders I love to work with because those leaders get things done. Those leaders have come to a point where don't need to be convinced. They don't need to be pushed and prodded. They're ready to move forward because they know what's necessary and they know what needs to happen. And so I'm inviting you to come to that place where you come to that place where you say, all right, it's time for me to take a step. All right. So 2 simple steps. Number 1, go back and review what is it that I've lost. Number 2, take a step. Put together a plan for you to grow personally. If you don't grow personally, you'll see that you become a barrier for the church. John Maxwell calls this the law of the lid. And he says that no organization can grow beyond the capacity of the person who's in charge. Well, guess what? As a senior leader, you're the person in charge. No church can grow beyond your leadership. They can't grow beyond your capacity. As a matter of fact, you may get leaders who come up in the church, but even leaders who would be ranked as a 10 out of 10, if you're a 6 out of 10, they can only perform at a level 6. They'll always come down because either your disorganization or your mismanagement or lack of understanding will always pull them back. And so one of the things that you've got to embrace is that you've got to take some simple steps. All right. Look down in the chat and just post for me. I almost said, look at your neighbor. That's the preacher in me. I can't help it. All right. But right down in the chat, just put, take a step. Just put, take a step. Just comment, take a step. All right. And number 5, last but not least, I want you to keep inspiring others. You may not know this. We're really hard on ourselves. And I know you're probably really hard on yourself, but you are an inspiration to somebody. You're an inspiration to somebody else in ways that you don't even imagine. And I want to encourage you to keep inspiring by constantly showing up, by constantly doing what you're called to do. Don't stop showing up. Keep inspiring people. Keep inspiring others to believe. Keep inspiring others to embrace the gospel. Keep inspiring others to become more like Jesus. Keep inspiring others. This is such an important key because you have to understand that you have such an amazing role to play in the kingdom. And a part of your role is to influence and inspire those around you to become all that God has called them to become, to live out their mission, to help implement the vision of the church. And I think it's important for you to do that. It's important for you to embrace that you are an inspiration to others and you have a responsibility to be an inspiration to others. So I want to encourage you to keep on showing up. Keep on showing up, man. Keep allowing your leadership to set the stage and the standard for the leaders around you. If you want to see something from the leaders in your church, be it. If you want to see behavior from them, do it. You be a model. Don't just teach. But what you've got to do, and we see this with Paul. Paul's model for leadership, I think, was so simple yet so beautiful. It was teach it, model it, coach it. Simple. First, he taught it. He taught them the principle. He taught them what they ought to do. He taught them what they should do. Then he modeled it. He actually showed them and said, hey, look, follow my example, follow me as I follow Christ. Then he coached it. He went somewhere else and then he wrote a letter to them saying, hey, I know this is what you guys are trying to do because I taught it to you. Well, here's where you've got off track. So here are a couple of adjustments I need you to make. Here's where you're doing really well. Keep on going. And I'm challenging you to do the same thing. Teach it, model it, and then coach it. When you teach it, you're telling them what the scripture says. You're telling them what the standard is. When you model it, you're allowing them to see it in your life, which means you're doing it first. And when you coach it, you make that hard transition from mom and pop to a well-established business where you take your hands off, you give it to them, and you say, I'm going to trust you to do it. You know, you've got to choose. Do you want to be the leader at the corner store, or do you want to be Sam Walton or the Waltons who lead Walmart? The leader of the corner store, you can do all your inventory by hand. You can be in the store working from sun up to sundown to get everything done. Just you and one partner, maybe a handful of people can do everything. Or do you want to reach more people where you've got to say, okay, I've got to have supervisors. I've got to have store managers who manage the store, and I instead work with those managers. I don't touch the inventory. I don't clean the floors. I don't go out and restock. What I do is I lead the people who go and do those things. Because after all, Ephesians 4 says that he gave us these gifts, apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher, for the equipping of the saints. He didn't give us those gifts for us to do everything. He gave us those gifts so that we might impart into others who then go out and do the things that God has called them to do. All right. So here's your last key. You've got to keep inspiring others. All right. Listen, do you want more help? If you want more help, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you my phone number. I want you to text me at 496-7997. Just text me and say, hey, man, I'm ready to connect. Just text me and say, hey, I'm ready to connect. If you text me, I'll reach back out to you. We can start a conversation about how we can help you and your church do these things. One of the things that we do is we help you go further faster by giving you the systems, the processes, the tools, and the resources that will move your church 5 years down the road. Listen, I am not exaggerating. In a matter of weeks, we'll give you some of the tools that you need to help you fast track what's happening and what's going on in your church for the glory of God. Listen, I hope this episode has been a blessing to you, and I will look forward to hearing from you as you're ready and prepared to become an even better leader. All right. Until next time, keep the gears turning. Peace.